Hey, all right, what's up everyone? In this video, we're going to show you how you can prep your car for a road trip. Specifically, we're going to be looking at a minivan, and more specifically, we're going to be looking at this 2015 Toyota Sienna. You can see it is prepped, ready for a road trip, but what should you perhaps do in terms of maintenance and preparation that you can control before you venture out onto the road. Keep in mind, I am not a mechanic at all, but I definitely look at some common sense things before I go, starting with the instruction manual or the owner's manual for your specific vehicle. I specifically take a look at maintenance, routine things to check up on, and what happens. I need to bookmark these pages. What happens when things go wrong, or if things go wrong, right? Specifically, warning lights. I definitely take a look at that and familiarize myself with some of those signals, or at the very least, just bookmark those pages. Keep them in your glove box, ready to go, because Murphy's Law, right? When things go wrong, or when they can go wrong, they will go wrong. So have that ready. I also keep a tire gauge in my glove box along with a flashlight. Two simple little tools. They take up zero space and are quickly accessible. As far as the back cargo area, I made a separate video on how you can install this cargo net for great additional storage. I'll put a link in the description below. But here's kind of all my gear that I like to travel with. I've got jumper cables in that white plastic bag. I've got a jumper cable, an extra filter for my oil. I've got some tools. I've got a tow rope there in case I slide off the road or whatnot. I've got some umbrellas, a tire inflator, a portable one, and I'll also link that down below. These are pretty cool things. Not only regular jumper cables, but I have kind of another type of jumper cable that is battery powered, which doesn't require another car to do that in case I'm by myself. But anyway, I've got this little pack here, and I keep in here various general tools, pliers. I've got an oil changing wrench that specifically fits the oil filter underneath my vehicle. We'll take a look at that later in more detail if you're interested in oil changing yourself. This video does not show you how to do that from start to finish, but we'll show you some basics. I've also got some various, there's an oil plug. When you take off your oil plug, there's a little rubber gasket. I carry some extra new ones with me in case I do need to change the oil or switch out some oil, and just some various other little tools. It's better to be prepared. Obviously, I'm not bringing the entire garage with me, but just some general tools that I might need. Here's that tire inflator. This is pretty neat. It plugs into the cigarette lighter, and you simply tell it what number you want it to inflate to. So for example, 34 PSI, press the button, and of course it'll shut off automatically at 34, or whatever you program it for, which is really nice. Here's that other jumper cable. Oh, I'll give you another shot of that here in a second. I like to carry some extra oil with me as well. So check the operator's manual for the type of oil that you require. Oh, here's that jumper cable, battery powered. You just charge it up before you go. And again, doesn't require another vehicle to jump your battery if you need a jump start. So next up, we're going to be taking a look at prepping our tires. With the tire gauge here, we'll kind of reset it at 0. And I'm sure you've done this before, but it can be kind of tricky. You want to find that right angle. You might want to practice before you. This is difficult for you. You might want to practice doing this a couple times before. So you if you do let out more air than you need to, you can inflate those in your garage before your road trip. But anyway, you can see here I'm doing it 2 times per tire, and you can see each reading about 30 PSI. Now to check in the front, the driver's seat, if you open your door up, you'll see a little sticker that looks like this, and it'll tell you what you should set your PSI to. So definitely inflate those to the recommended PSI. Next, we'll do a visual inspection of the tires to make sure they are road ready. Again, I am not a mechanic, so you're going to want to Google, what does road ready mean in terms of depth of tread. Obviously, I don't know how far you may be going, but I'm also going to be doing a general inspection to make sure there are no chips or gouges in the sidewall or the rims. You could also tighten up the lug nuts or have your mechanic tighten up those lug nuts. Perhaps even rotate your tires if it's time to do that before you get out on the open road. Highly recommended tip here, when you load up things for your road trip, do not leave the door open. You can see there's a light right there that may be on, and there are other kind of smaller lights on your vehicle that may drain your battery. We've done this before, made this mistake. For example, look at this little light here. It is always on when this door is open. So if you're thinking about loading up your car a couple of days before and you just want to leave your doors open, think again. This could drain your battery when it's time to roll out on your road trip day. So I keep that on off so that most doors, the lights shut off if the doors are open, but be careful, some lights still may stay on. Next up, let's take a look under the hood and see what kind of maintenance we can be doing under the hood. Let's check the windshield wiper. You can see the fluid there is a little low. I like to have that going up the cylinder there a little bit more. Just want to top that off. That's probably one of the easiest jobs you could do. Buy yourself some windshield wiper fluid at your local hardware store and fill it up. All right, we'll close that up for you. Make sure that's nice and tight. Next up, we'll take a look at the coolant or the antifreeze. Now, check your owner's manual to see what kind of coolant or antifreeze you take. This one takes a kind of a pink-red color. So talk to your local dealership to see if they'll sell you a small bottle of that for your road trip. Next, we'll take a look at the battery terminals. Just make sure everything is tight and corrosion-free. The positive and the negative terminal there looks good to go. Next up, we'll take a look at the air filter. We'll replace it or do a visual inspection. Actually, this one looks like it's in pretty good shape, but we will take it out and just kind of get some of those larger pieces out of there. So in this particular minivan, the air filter just removes like this. And you can see it's doing a pretty good job collecting a lot of stuff underneath there. So we'll just kind of get some of those larger pieces out, just kind of dust it off a little bit, and then we'll just put it back. So that's in pretty good shape. And we will clamp those little pieces back down so it's nice and tight. Okay, we're going to continue our visual inspection here. Now this is the oil. You'll pour oil into this container. Obviously make sure you have the right kind of oil. Check your owner's manual. And here's your dipstick here. We're going to check that oil to make sure it is nice and clean. Now, I just recently changed this. You can see we have nice golden beautiful oil there. So no need to do anything at this point. However, if you needed to change this, you would obviously bring that into your mechanic. And if you're interested in doing it yourself, I will show you briefly how you can do that. But at this point, we would put that dipstick back and continue our visual inspection around the engine to make sure that hoses, you don't see any cracking or any dripping liquid of any type. Everything looks pretty good, so we'll call it good there. Now, just a little bit before we continue with your maintenance and prep tips, if you're looking at changing the oil, this is what you would need. Here is the oil filter itself, and I'll show you what tools you need to undo this if you're interested in doing it, or certainly traveling with the tools on your road trip in case of an emergency. Now this is the plug, the oil drain plug. You take that off and the oil will come out of the reservoir. So to change the oil, it's relatively straightforward. You can YouTube or Google search how to change the oil in your specific vehicle. Obviously, you need something where the oil can drain into. And we will start off by taking off the drain plug and getting the majority of the oil drained out. So with our ratchet that fits the little nut on the drain plug, we will go ahead and take that out, and you'll see all the black oil start to exit. Obviously, this can get to be a pretty dirty job, so make sure you have plenty of newspaper, maybe some cat litter to clean up the spilled oil there, but you'll just let it drain into your container. And please just be responsible and dispose of spent oil properly. It should never go into the environment. Drop it off at your local oil recycling center, or your automotive parts also often receives spent oil. All right, we're going to open up our dipstick just a little bit and our main oil on the top of the engine underneath the hood there, just to kind of act as a vent so that all of that oil, nothing is trapped in there. With airflow up top, it's going to allow all that extra oil to drain, and let it sit for 20-30 minutes, get all of it out of there. So here are the tools that we're going to need. Here's the oil filter removal tool. It is specific for this vehicle. I will link this specific tool down in the description below if you're interested. I also use this type of oil. Highly recommended. It is fully synthetic and very affordable. So check out the description below for those links if you want to pick this stuff up yourself. And obviously you're going to want to make sure you buy the proper amount of oil, right? This particular vehicle calls for like 6.4 quarts of oil, and they sell them in these 5-quart containers. So you can do the math there, and I need to buy 2. In other words, 3 5-quart containers will give me 2 oil changes. And here's the filter, just a closer look here, brand new. I travel with this on my road trips. Now this filter comes with these built-in gaskets. It's kind of this little kit and this little plastic plug as well. And we'll open this up and you can kind of see how this works here. By the way, the oil plug, once your oil is drained, make sure your oil plug, there's a little rubber gasket on there, and it's a crush washer. It should be changed every oil filter. So take that off, throw it away, and put a new one on. I'll give you a better look at that here in a second, but when we put things back together. But I definitely travel with some of those new oil plug crush washers if I need to for my road trip. So I travel have that with me. Okay, next up we're going to be taking off the oil filter itself. And to do so, we need our little ratchet right there. And we're just going to remove the little cap just like that. You just slide up your little ratchet into that square fitting. Give it a good turn. And depending on how tight that is, it should come off pretty easily. Make sure you're turning it in the right direction. There we go. And you can manually remove that cap there once it is pretty loose, or you're able to do that. Just like you can see here. There we go. So the cap is removed. Now, not a lot of oil should come out at this point. And so we're going to take that there's a little white plastic drain piece that came with the oil filter itself. We're going to take that and insert it into the cap, and that's going to basically release the air and let some oil drip right out of there. So we'll give that some time, another several minutes, just to make sure. You obviously want to make sure that's screwed all the way up in there, press all the way up in there. Maybe your oil filter system does not have this, so you'll need to check your operator's manual, or of course Google or YouTube search how to change the oil in your specific vehicle for more vehicle-specific procedures. Now, importantly, there might be a little gasket, rubber gasket right there, so be careful. You don't want to leave that in there. You want to take that out and replace it. The oil filter should come with a new little gasket. Here's the tool that we're going to be attaching to our ratchet set to remove the oil filter itself. Again, I will put a link below for this. I would venture to say it's virtually impossible to get that off without this specific tool, without stripping something or causing harm to your vehicle. So highly recommended little piece. I cannot emphasize that enough. Here's a better look at that new gasket on the oil plug as we go to put things back together. You did not see the oil filter come off there or back on. Sorry about that. Again, this is not a video showing you how to change your oil from start to finish, but just to give you an idea if you want to do it yourself before a road trip. We're going to put that oil gasket, the oil plug gasket back on, and we'll screw that in, and the oil change is done. All right, next up we're going to be taking a look at a cabin filter and replacing that. Most vehicles, well, I shouldn't say most, but plenty of vehicles might have a cabin filter that will help keep your cabin air clean and your air conditioning working really well. So to do that, we're going to be taking off the glove box. Again, you can check to see how you do this with your specific vehicle, but this Sienna has a couple of plastic pieces that you just saw me remove there. And then behind the glove box, we have a couple of clips, this horizontal little tray here. And if you take off that little cap or that little cover, you can see the cabin filter, air filter right here. So we'll slide that out and just check the condition and replace it at this point if needed. However, I did this recently, so we do not need to replace it. Make sure you obviously put that back in the correct way. It should tell you which side should go up or down when you buy it from the box. There might even be little arrows on that white part telling you to put it up or down. Okay, so we'll put that cover back on and make sure that's clipped, and then the glove box goes on those little hinges. Put those on the hinges there, and then these little plastic pieces you have to kind of, not super forcefully, but kind of slightly bend that plastic just to push those little tabs back behind that little plastic piece. And then this little piece attaches back on like that, and we should be good to go. Our glove box is now operational again, and our cabin filter is cleaned and ready for our road trip. Moving right along, we're going to be testing out our brake lights and our turn signals, all back in lights. You might want to grab another person for this job, but we'll check the left turn signal, make sure that is working. And of course the right turn signal to make sure that is working. And we'll replace those bulbs if we notice they are not. And of course get somebody behind you to see if the brake lights are working and get those replaced if they're not. You might want to consider traveling with some extra ones too, depending on how far you're going, or at least know which kind you need to buy. Next up, we're going to test out the windshield wipers. That is a critical job and very underestimated, I think. But we're going to replace those windshield wipers if they need to be replaced. You can do a visual inspection of the blades themselves and test them out to see how well they clean off your windshield wiper. Now, this can be kind of tricky to get on and off. For this particular Sienna here, you just saw how they are removed. And we will do a visual inspection to make sure we don't have any torn rubber or anything like that. And we will replace them as needed. We'll slide them back on like that. And that's about it. With these ideas, these little tips in mind, your vehicle hopefully should be road trip ready. And you'll have some peace of mind once you're out there with your proper tools and knowing that you have done as much as you could do to control what you can control, if that makes sense. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. For more do-it-yourself jobs and real home product reviews, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for being with me.